Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. On today's show, is Big Ben angling for a coaching change in Pittsburgh? Plus, what to make of Tom Brady heaping praise on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And is it disrespectful for the Eagles to be home underdogs against the Vikings? Skip, Shannon, let's get to it. Despite Ben Roethlisberger's 469 yards and 5 touchdowns, the Steelers were upset by the Jags on Sunday. In that game, Pittsburgh was stopped on 2 short fourth downs. One was a run outside by Le'Veon Bell, and the other was a Ben incompletion to Juju Smith-Schuster. Yesterday, Ben was asked why he did not run a quarterback sneak on either of those plays, and he said he doesn't have the freedom to check to a sneak. There have also been reports of tension between Ben and offensive coordinator Todd Haley, and Ben addressed that as well. Let's take a listen.
There's always issues in a competitive field like we have where everyone's trying to win and everyone's trying to be the best they can be. You might butt heads at times. It doesn't mean that you have any problem, any personal problem, and the least amount of change, the better. That's from players to coaches to everything. We don't want to have big changes because we're right there. We're on the cusp, and we feel that we've got some great things going for us.
Shannon, what do you make of Ben's comments?
They're odd. They're odd because, Skip, he's constantly throwing the coaches, especially the offensive coaches, under the bus. Mm-hmm. We saw this on this full display after the New England Patriots game. Well, I wanted to spike the ball, but they said, no, don't spike it. Go ahead and run the play. We didn't have to. But what we've seen from Ben, Skip, that he's willing to place the blame on someone other than himself. Normally, quarterbacks of Ben pedigree, I classify Ben as a great quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's won 2 Super Bowls. He's gone to 3.
Yep.
Normally, in a situation like that, when things don't go the way they should have gone or the way you think they should have gone at the end of the ball game, the quarterback takes the blame. The ball was in my hand. I've got to do a better job of getting us into the right play, but I must do a better job of protecting the ball. I can't throw an interception in that play. I don't go and say, well, I wanted to spike it, but they were in my ear saying, no, no, no. That was unnecessary. We didn't need to hear that. And then again, well, why didn't you run the quarterback sneak on that 4th and 1? Well, I'm not allowed to change the quarterback sneak. Mm-hmm. So let me get this right. A quarterback of Ben Roethlisberger's pedigree. Mm-hmm. Ben has almost 200 career starts. He's a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. So you're telling me they give you the ability to change a play from pass to run or from run to pass, but you don't have the ability to do a quarterback sneak? Now, sometimes quarterback sneaks are called, Skip. I know I've been in the huddle and we've called a quarterback sneak. But sometime on 3rd and short or 4th and short, the quarterback sees something, he'll tap the center on the butt, and they just go.
Here we go.
But Ben doesn't have that luxury. A guy of Ben Roethlisberger, 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback with 200 starts, he doesn't have the ability. So now, again, Skip, what did he do? He threw the. Why wouldn't they let Ben have that ability to change the play and run the quarterback sneak? Yep. Guy's 6'4", 250. Why couldn't he do that? So, again, now his offensive coaches are thrown under the bus. I agree with him. Offensively, it's not their problem, Skip. They're loaded. I mean, you have almost 600 yards of total offense on the number 1 defense and all of, I think they're the number 1 scoring defense. You put up 42 points on the number 1 scoring defense in all of football. That should be that's an accomplishment. You should win that ball game. But Skip, the top 3 in total offense, and Ben is the only quarterback in NFL history to have 3 500-yard passing days. Skip, think about that. 3. No other quarterback has more than 1. He has 3 of those since Todd Haley's been his offensive coordinator. They've had 3 top total offenses in the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Their problem, but if you go back and look at when they won the Super Bowl, Skip, in 2005, they were 3 in scoring defense. 2008, they were 1 in scoring defense. Next year, even though they lost to the Packers, they were 1. Therein lies their problem. Problem is not on the offensive side of football. No. Sure, he and Todd Haley might butt head, and that's, 2 competitive, strong-willed, stubborn individuals. You see it this way, I see it that way. Yeah. We both want the same thing. We might have an issue of how the best to get there. Offense is not their problem. Defense is their problem. And the steel curtain is not coming back anymore. So they built their team through the, you look at all the firepower, top 2 running back, top 2 wide receiver, a top 3 or 4 quarterback. Offensive line is very good. So, Skip, what you have to do if you're going to put all the money on the offensive side, you better hit it off in the draft on the defensive side. And right now, when Shazier went out, they don't really have anybody. Cam Hayward can get to the, I like him. But on the back end.
They did lead the league in sacks, so I give them that.
But on that back end,
no
Skip,
good.
That's why they don't ever match up with Brady.
Yep.
Even when they had they had Troy Polamalu and James Harrison. Now they don't have those guys. It's even more. But the problem was, Skip, is that all they saw is like you running a race. And I'm looking at Joey, me and Joey neck and neck. Joey and I neck and neck. Then somebody come beat both of us at the tape. They looking at New England, and here come Jacksonville.
Well, if you're looking at me, you're obviously going to lose. Everyone knows that. You got to look straight ahead.
Everyone knows that.
The little legs, Joey, like.
Yeah, but those little legs, they move.
But that was the thing, Skip. They put all their focus. Even Keith Butler, Skip, he was talking about, oh, we played too much zone. We're going to play man. You're talking about in March what you're going to do when you see this team in December and when you see this team in the playoffs. Hold on. What do you think these other teams are going to do? They're just going to lay over and let you have a free run at New England? It's just odd for Ben to say he would like to see as little turnover and change as possible, considering all he does is throw his offensive coaches up under the bus. So I agree with him. Change is unnecessary on that side of the football. But it strikes me as a little odd that every chance he seems to get, it's always something that the offensive coaches that I wanted to do this, but they wanted to do that.
Yep. So my big picture takeaway from all that you just said is that between the lines, behind the scenes, and this is just my take, I don't have any inside knowledge of this, but I believe Ben Roethlisberger is attempting to get Mike Tomlin ousted, along with Todd Haley.
Okay.
All of them. I think Ben is trying to throw them not only under the bus, but out the door. And yet Ben, if I may, we haven't had a LeBron reference yet in the show, he's sort of, to me, going LeBron on Mike Tomlin because LeBron is classic passive-aggressive. So in one breath, Ben is saying, oh, I don't want any changes here. I want to preserve the continuity. We're right on the cusp.
Right.
But in the next breath, he is killing Mike Tomlin, repeatedly killing after the New England game and now after this game. And he didn't let it lay on his radio show. That was his radio, right, yesterday. He went deeper and deeper into it. He even went into, hey, on 4th and 2s, I propose that we run empty backfield and I run the quarterback draw. I mean, he is, what, 6'5", 250 or whatever.
He lost some weight, but he's still a big quarterback.
Still a big quarterback. But he can run a little bit.
Yeah.
So he said that Mike Tomlin just laughed at me about that one. He wouldn't even deal with it. Okay, so it's starting to feel like there's a groundswell, and Ben realizes he's on the right side of this, but he doesn't want the blood on his hands because, to me, just observing Ben from a distance, and maybe you would have a better insight coming from Pittsburgh, but Ben wants to be loved. He doesn't want to ever be a bad guy. He doesn't want to step out there and make controversial statements. He still wants to be viewed as beloved quarterback of the Steelers, but it's also pretty clear to me he's pretty down not only on the head coach, but clearly, according to reports, on the quarterback coach, that they wouldn't even speak to each other by the end of the year. And that's the coordinator, Haley, but the quarterback coach had to come down on the sidelines just to make peace and be the liaison between the quarterback and the coordinator.
Correct.
Not a real healthy situation.
No.
So now we have, this was shocking to me. Maybe you knew this, Joy, but I didn't know this. I didn't know that the Rooney family now owns only 30%, a little more than 30% of the Steelers, that about almost 70% of the Steelers owned by minority owners, or you could call them limited partners. And there's reportedly about 15 of those, including a guy you know, John Stallworth, who was a pretty good receiver once upon a time for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And he's the only name I know. Maybe people from Pittsburgh would know some of these people. Some of them are just fans, but they're businessmen, and they must have pretty deep pockets because they own about 70% of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the Rooney family preserves final say. Any veto power, any big decision on the coach or not the coach, it's coming from the Rooneys.
Correct.
So all the limited partners have is, according to numerous reports, a pipeline straight to Art Rooney II, who is now in power.
Right.
the late Dan Rooney was in power when Mike Tomlin was hired, but Art Rooney reportedly, I think Mike Florio wrote this, that Art Rooney wanted Russ Grimm back in, 2000, going into 2007.
After Coach Cowell retired in 2006, after the sixth season, so 2007.
That Art Rooney, who is now in power, leaned toward Russ Grimm for the head coach. That didn't happen because at that point, Dan Rooney was in power, and he wanted unknown Mike Tomlin from Minnesota. And he got his wish, and they went that direction. And it was a great move because it resulted in 2 Super Bowls and 1 Super Bowl championship. But since that last Super Bowl, and they lost that one, that was back in 2010, it's been a while. And you have to go back to 2012 to find the last time they had the #1 defense, because that's sort of the end of Polamalu, and so they were riding
James
high.
Harrison was
and that was he was, but he was still riding high at that point. So they hung their hat on Mike Tomlin's side of the ball, and he was the coordinator in Minnesota, I think.
Yes, he was for 1 year.
For 1 year. So his calling card was the defense. So early on, through 2012, they were a defensive football team. And then all of a sudden, they fall to 6th in 2012, and then 14th, 18th, 11th, 10th, 7th, and then this year to the average is 6th, but the average is 11th. So to your point, they're not the steel curtain anymore. And the irony of this is that really Ben and throwing sometimes 50 passes a game has kept them afloat, right? That's kind of how they've done it under Mike Tomlin over the last 5 or 6 years.
Correct.
So who is more valuable right now, Ben Roethlisberger or Mike Tomlin? Okay, well, I think it's still the quarterback.
Yes.
And so by all reports, including Mike Florio's, the limited partners who own 70% are strongly pushing to fire Mike Tomlin. Now, does Ben know that? Is he privy to that? Does he think there's a groundswell behind him so that he can make these public statements about his coach where he is throwing him under the bus? And again, according to the Florio report, that it's increasingly obvious to the limited partners that Mike Tomlin is failing in key decision-making points of the game. And we've heard all the things, the 2 4th and 1s the other day. Then the disaster that was the end of the New England game when they were at odds over spike or not to spike. Correct. And they didn't seem to have, coming out of a timeout, any plan for those last couple of plays, right? Yeah. And then at the end of the game the other day against Jacksonville, they did get the ball back. They're 10 points down at that point with 1:45, and they didn't seem to have any real urgency at that point, and it took 10 plays for them to score the final touchdown, which came with 1 second left on the clock to cut it back to 3 points. And according to these reports, the limited partners are up in arms like, what are you doing? You got to go for the throat quickly. You got to go score immediately. You can't have a 10-play drive with 1:45 left. And then, of course, they did onside with 2:18 left, which most people took issue with, including us. So now we're back to, man, is Mike Tomlin going to survive this? Well, it's still up to Art Rooney II. He'd be, the buck's going to stop on his desk.
But this doesn't strike me. If you look at the history of the Steelers since 1969, they have yet to fire a coach.
No.
Coach Noel walked away. Coach Kyle walked away. Mike Tomlin has 8 of his 11 seasons have been 10 wins or better seasons. He has gone to 2 Super Bowls. At some point in time, now the last time we've had a coach to win as many games as Coach Tomlin did and get fired, we got to go way, way back to Marty Schottenheimer with 14-2 with the San Diego Chargers. But he and the general managers, A.J. Smith, were butting heads, Skip. That was the last time. Normally, coaches that win like this, they walk away from the game. Coach Dungy, Bill Parcells in 1990 after that Super Bowl. We don't normally see coaches have this kind of success for an extended period of time get fired. Now, I agree with what you said. Ben wants to be loved because he knows what it's like to be disliked in Pittsburgh. The motorcycle incident, a lot of people turned on Ben. When he went through
a long time ago.
But when he went through that in Milledgeville, Georgia, a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's a good point. Very good point.
So now
he had yet another incident in Reno, Nevada.
Well, the Reno was before the Milledgeville.
Got it.
But I think the thing is, Keith kind of turned his life around. He's gotten married. He got 3 boys. So now he's like the typical, what you want probably your quarterback to be. Married, settled, not out bar hopping, carousing the town, got a family. So Ben has kind of re-ingratiated himself into the community, and the Steelers love him. They love their football players anyway, quarterbacks obviously. But Skip, I thought going into this game, it was a 1 that Mike Tomlin hot seat. I think it's a 2 now. I don't see Art the second firing Mike Tomlin at this point because that's just not the way they do business. When you've had 3 coaches in 50 years,
Yep.
you stay the course. But
Coach Cowher walked away, I think, of his own volition.
He did.
There may have been something going on there.
He did.
Yep.
He did. And obviously, Coach Noll walked away. But I think it would be it's going to be very odd. I don't see them firing. I think the McClatchy family owns a big portion of it. I think they might own like 10, 20% because when the senior, Art the first, he got out of the Steelers. He basically he sold it to them. He ended up buying it back, but he left 20% with them. But I'm surprised. I'm with you, Skip. I didn't know they only own 30%.
30%.
Because
just barely enough to qualify as the majority in the NFL.
Well, they were grandfathered in because it was split up between the family, and it was on like 20, and the McClatchy owned 20 and 10 other way.
But they were forced to reorganize because they had
the casino and the track. Right.
Yep.
And so
the gaming. Yep.
Mr. Dan Rooney and Art II, they ended up buying a couple of the brothers, big chunks of the brothers.
So here's where I am torn. And I've admitted this many times on the air, live here on Undisputed and other shows. I just like the heck out of Mike Tomlin.
I do.
And I've lost some objectivity because it's hard for me to reach all the way to he must go.
Right.
But I don't like the signs, and I don't like the lack of discipline where he doesn't have control of the team. I didn't love the Facebook Live. No. We blamed that on Antonio, and I thought maybe you were to the point of cut bait with Antonio Brown at that point.
Yeah.
But they re-signed him, and they basically sent a message to the locker room, it's okay. You can pretty much do whatever you want to if he's going to get away with that one, and he's gotten away with several other things. So is there a lack of discipline? Has he sort of, quote-unquote, lost the team? I think the team still likes him, but does the team respond to his voice after these 11 years? It's a long time.
It is.
And then I'm trying to be objective about this. If you look at his playoff record, it's 8-7. But he had 2 Super Bowl runs, which helps your playoff record. If you take away the 2 Super Bowl runs, and again, they happened and they're on there, but if you take them away, he's 3-6 in the postseason. And there have been lots of disappointments. I mean, they did, with a really good football team, they went and lost to Tim Tebow at Denver.
Yes.
And Ryan Clark couldn't play in that game, but still, that was the last year, the number 1 defense. So the number 1 defense lost to Tim Tebow at Denver. And there have been a lot of playoff disasters and collapses where you could pick it to pieces about what was he thinking here? What were they doing here? But then I go back and forth because I look at the overall regular season record and he's 116-60. Well, it's hard to say, fire him.
Yeah.
But off Sunday's game, that's fireable offenses. I saw several fireable offenses that are going to go on his record, and they might add up.
Well, for me, Skip, I think they have 2 really bad playoff losses, and it all depends on how you look at it. I do think losing to Tim Tebow, but that was on the road. Ben had an injury that season. Ryan Clark, the defensive signal caller, didn't play, and I think one of their running backs was injured also. But anyway, but when you look at it, Skip, losing to the Patriots there are a lot of teams that lost to the Patriots. And if you go back to 2003, you take out the anomaly season of Joe Flacco, only Ben, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning has represented the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So basically that's what you had. Ben is going to be an afterthought because he played in the era, Skip, of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, who happened to be in the same conference.
Yep.
A lot of great players in the 90s are afterthoughts or footnotes because that coincide with the dominance of one Michael Jordan. And so when you look at it, Skip, you're like, well, but when you look at, Ben got 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, but Tom is going for his 6th. So now you like, when you look at Mike Tomlin, you're like 116-60, that's great. But he happens to be in the same conference in the same era as Coach Belichick. So you can easily get skewed, Skip, but here's my thing. Okay, you want Mike Tomlin out. Who can you go get that's going to be better than what he's been right now?
The problem with that question is, if I'd asked you the same question when Coach Cowher walked away, and I'd said, hey, there's this guy up in Minneapolis who's been the coordinator for 1 year, and he's going to be great, you'd say, huh? How do you know?
If Mike Tomlin walks away, even if they fire him, Skip, There's going to be a lot of press conferences that might have been going to press on Monday that's going to be held up because they're going to want a chance to talk to Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
And there are going to be a lot of guys that might have jobs. There are going to be a lot of coaches that like, okay, I'm good now. All of a sudden, Mike Tomlin becomes available. Yeah. They're going to get real nervous.
Okay, but is Ben Roethlisberger behind the scenes talking to a lot of these limited partners, and there's a groundswell that they're going to go to Art Rooney II and say, it's over. We have to move forward with this. Is Ben's voice strong enough to move the current owner of the team, who has final say, to say that's enough after 11 years? It's not like after 2 or 3 years. It's 11 years of Mike Tomlin.
But if you look at it, if you look at the teams that Ben are losing to, it's not like he's losing to the team and then they lose the next week. He's losing to the Patriots. He's losing to the Broncos.
That's not good enough for the Steelers. They have more Lombardis than any team so far. I mean, the Patriots are going to get 6, we think, this year. But right now, Steelers have it. And that's just not how they do business. They're not happy to make it to the playoffs. They're expected to win a Super Bowl every year.
Yeah, but if you look at the 80s, they had a period of the 80s, they did nothing. They had a period in the 90s, they did nothing.
Well, that's the one thing that I think will keep Tomlin in place because Ben's talking about retiring every other year.
He is?
He's saying he's only looking towards next year.
Right.
And
so
by
if
the
you
way,
get rid of Ben, or if Ben retires and then you don't have Tomlin, where are you? You're back in that spot.
I don't know. But you did have Ben this year, and you lost twice to Jacksonville. And in those 2 games combined, he committed 7 turnovers, and 3 of those turnovers got returned for touchdowns.
But here's the thing. Think about this, Skip. Think about how long Coach Cowell went without winning a Super Bowl. He got to 2. He lost the first one. Coach Cowell went a long time. And then from that one that he lost in 95 until he won it again in 05. Think about that period now.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
so I believe they stay the course. I don't believe they're firing Mike Tomlin.
My gut is you're probably right, but I think this is closer than you might think.
No mercy. Hey guys, Joy Taylor here. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you that support for the Undisputed podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. They understand that home plays a big role in your life and family. That's why they created Rocket Mortgage. Rocket Mortgage gives you the confidence you need when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. It's simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Whether you're looking to buy your first home or your 10th, with Rocket Mortgage, you get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make an informed decision. It's convenient. Our trusted partners allow you to share your financial information with Rocket Mortgage at the touch of a button. And in addition to getting a real mortgage approval in minutes, you can even adjust the rate and length of your loan in real time to make sure you're getting the right solution for you. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/undisputed. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. No mercy. Pro Football Talk is reporting some of the Steelers' limited partners want Mike Tomlin to be fired. Tomlin faced criticism after Sunday's loss to the Jaguars when Pittsburgh was stopped on 2 short 4th-down plays. Then with over 2 minutes left in the 4th quarter, down by 7, Tomlin chose to go for an onside kick, which failed. The Steelers have only won 3 playoff games in the last 7 seasons. We're joined by Rob Parker. Welcome, Rob.
What's happening? And happy birthday, Joy. You look radiant.
Thank you.
Skip, I thought you was a school teacher.
I taught yesterday.
The kids skip school, not the teacher. How you up here with us?
I mean, what class is at 7:47 a.m.?
He has 1 class a week.
Right. I taught yesterday. It's 10 to 1. And I taught yesterday.
He got online. That's online college.
It ain't no online.
It's in the strip. I bet
USC ain't online.
It's in the strip mall.
Stop.
Rob, should Tomlin be on the hot seat?
Absolutely should be on the hot seat. With that coaching performance that he put on Sunday, which just was a bad job. It just was. And not only the stuff just on the field, when you got the 4th and 1s, which were questionable, onside kick, questionable, but the preparation leading into the game. Were they ready, Shannon, when they came out there? They weren't ready. They were down 21-0.
Well, they talked about being ready.
And the other stuff was the pregame hype where they're talking about the Patriots. Like, it was up and down the locker room and him. Didn't he do a TV interview where he said it was going to come down to the Patriots and the Steelers? That shouldn't happen. Now, I can understand why some people are, after a while, 11 years is a long time, and I know he had success. He won a Super Bowl, went to 2.
Yep.
But after a while, people start to say, is this enough? The flip side of this is, if you base it on how they do coaches in the NFL, then he shouldn't be going anywhere.
Right.
Dan Quinn ain't going nowhere in Atlanta, right? Choked in the Super Bowl, lost last week to the Eagles, and then I could go on and on. Marvin Lewis is still employed. Hugh Jackson is still employed. Vance Joseph is still employed. I could just go on and on and on about guys who are still employed. So do I think they should look at Tomlin and think about it seriously and wonder or not if there's a disconnect also with Ben Roethlisberger, which I think there is?
There is.
And so you need to look at it and say, can this team still win? And maybe we need a new voice. Look at it. But do I think he's going anywhere? No, I don't.
The man won 13 games this season. The last time a coach won 13 games and got fired was Marty Schottenheimer. Went 14-2.
Was that the year they lost to the Jets?
That was the year they lost to the Patriots.
Patriots, oh,
in the divisional game, and
Yep.
Patriots was dancing, and LaDainian Tomlinson lost his mind after the game. He's won 10 wins each of the last 4 seasons. And I get it. In Pittsburgh, it's about Lombardis. They make that abundantly clear. Mike Tomlin understands what he signed up for when he took on the head coaching job of this organization. But 116-60. I mean, who are you going to get to replace him? Now, granted, they have to do a better job of identifying defensive talent in the draft and bringing it in and making sure they're ready to play, because that's the problem, Skip. You score 42 points and get almost 600 yards. You're supposed to win. Not only are you supposed to win, you're supposed to dominate. Because if you score 42 points and get almost 600 yards, more times than not, you're winning. Because we saw the last time somebody got that many yards was Kansas City opening day against New England.
Yep.
And they dominated 42-28, 40, something like that.
Yep.
And they had 538. Ben them had more yards than that. They scored more points, the same amount of points. But they lose. So clearly on that side of the football, Mike Tomlin cut his teeth in this league as a defensive coordinator. They need to be better on that side of the football. But for me, this is ridiculous that we even have this conversation that Mike Tomlin should be on the hot seat after. Now, granted, hey, I didn't like the way the team, they did too much talking for my taste. Because clearly, especially on that side of the ball. Le'Veon, you want to talk. Antonio Brown, you want to talk. Juju, I got no problem. But when you're on the defensive side of football, come on, bro. I'm talking about y'all banging on the Jacksonville joke. Talking about y'all gonna know my name. Y'all gonna know my name. Are you Destiny Child say your name? I mean, what's going on with that, Joy?
Destiny Child, very nice.
I'm with Rob on this one for once.
Are you sick? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm not sure Mike Tomlin's all right. And again, my problem is, and I've disqualified myself, I just like him. I've always said if I could play in the NFL, I'd want to play for that guy. I like the way he handles his post-game press conference. He's so commanding and forthright and quotable and just lays it on the line. This is what we didn't do. This is what we got to do. And I respect all that. But all the signs are bad. And they're going from bad to worse because the quarterback appears to me to have declared war on the head coach because he's not pulling any punches. But then he will pull this punch. It's classic LeBron-esque passive-aggressive because Big Ben says publicly, I don't want anybody fired. I want to preserve continuity here. But can you believe this? He won't even let me run a quarterback sneak. He won't let me run a quarterback draw on 4th and 2.
And
Don't ask me.
And
why.
Skip, if you had a good relationship with the coach,
You wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do it, and I think you would be more apt to get out of that play call and do what you know is right to do. And I don't think he wants to do that.
And he did it after the
New
Patriot fiasco at the end of the Pittsburgh game at Pittsburgh. It was just chaos where they didn't have a plan. They had a timeout to call a couple plays, and they had no idea. And it's chaos in his ear and through the headsets. And he wants to spike. No, they don't want to spike, so he does some awkward halfway
Fake spike.
Costing the game.
And it throws an interception to Eli Rogers, who's the only one running a route. Everybody else is just standing.
Right.
That's chaos.
Right.
And ultimately, the buck has to stop on the head coach's desk on that one. Then you detailed all the disasters the other day. That was a disastrous coaching job before the game and during the game by Mike Tomlin. So if you're losing the quarterback, and now there are reports that there are about 15 limited partners, minority owners, who own 70% of the team, but they don't have final say. That comes down to Art Rooney II. So the buck stops on his desk, but they have a pipeline to him, and by contract, he has to listen to them, have a session with them, and by all accounts, by many reports, they are going to strongly push for the removal of Mike Tomlin. Are they going to get their way? I have no idea. Joy grew up there. History would tell you that your conclusion is correct. They're just not going to do it because they don't do this.
They don't do it. They've only had three coaches in the last, 50 years? Is that what it is?
But sometimes you can't leap to the conclusion of, okay, who's better than Mike Tomlin? Well, sometimes you just sort of burn out. You wear out your welcome, and as you said many times, sometimes the words start to ring hollow in the locker room. They just do, and it looks like you've let some of the players, starting with Antonio, run amok, and at some point you just have to change the scenery. You just have to let somebody come in with a fresh voice and start over. Are they still a good team? Yeah, they're, as Ben said, we're
loaded.
on the cusp.
They're low. And Skip, there have been a lot of quarterbacks that haven't had a great relationship with their head coach, but they never threw him under the bus like Ben is always willing to do. There have been a lot of quarterbacks that didn't have a great working relationship with the offensive coordinator, but they don't throw them under the bus like Ben. And not only will he throw them under the bus, he'll then get in the bus and drive over them.
He does.
Back up over them.
That's what
In this case, he's backing up over him.
Yeah.
He already did this after the New England.
And don't forget, he also did some of this after the protests. And remember, he went back and went out publicly and said that he was against what Tomlin wanted to do.
He do what we call in our community a lot of dry snitching. He'll volunteer information that's unprompted. Nobody asked him. What? Oh, I wanted to spike it, but they told me no. Nobody even asked you that. You volunteered that. He'll volunteer.
Everything he says is, "Don't blame me. It's his. He did it. It was his choice."
And that's why I think ownership has to look at it to just say, now, is Ben staying here, or we still believe we got a chance to win in the next 2 or 3 years with Ben? Yeah. And maybe this coach it just doesn't work anymore, and maybe we need somebody else. Because I agree, you win 13 games, it's hard to just up and up say you got to get out and it's done. But where are you trying to go? Are you trying to win 13 games, or are you trying to win a Super Bowl?
Okay, to Joy's point, that franchise doesn't deal in getting to the playoffs. A playoff loss is okay. It's not okay.
Not at home.
They want to win Lombardi trophies because they have the most Lombardi trophies, so that's the mindset. That's the way you were raised in that tradition. So now you look at his playoff record, he's 8-7, and if you take away the 2 Super Bowl runs, which came in 2008 and 2010, he's 3-6 in the postseason. Well, it's starting to add up to not good enough, even though your regular season is great.
Hold up. Joy's first 20 years of her life, she didn't see no Super Bowl. Now all of a sudden you want them every other year. See, you starting to get like the Patriots. You know, the Patriots fans,
Oh, they were terrible.
No, they were not. The Patriots, they've been winning ever since the 1960.
Oh, really?
No, they have not. If you let them tell it, they started playing football in 2001.
I can't remember back that far.
Can't remember past that.
But I remember old Gillette Stadium that held 50,000 and only 20,000 people showed up.
You remember
going up there.
I was there many times.
Exactly.
And the Patriots were terrible.
So, Joy, you need to stop this. Now, I understand what the Steelers were in the 70s, but then they had a long loss, Skip. You remember from 79, the last Super Bowl win, all the way to 05.
That doesn't mean they're going to lower their expectations.
No, I'm not saying
once the bar has been set, that's where it is.
Hold on. You lowered the expectation with 13-3. Now, you gave remember Coach Coward now, he got hired in 1992. He didn't win a Super Bowl until 2005. That's 13 years. Mike Tomlin won what, in his second year?
Second year, I think it was.
And gone again. I just, look, I get it. See what has happened? This is all the Patriots' fault. Because they have such success, they win every year, win Super Bowls, and this is what everybody thinks they should do.
But the Steelers are consistent in the way that the Patriots have been consistent with Kraft, Brady, Belichick
Right.
every single year. The Steelers are the same model. What did we just say? They had 3 coaches in 50 years. That's really the Steelers model, is to be consistent in that. I'm not saying that they expect to win a Super Bowl every year, but
everybody
once
looks
you
at
get
the
in a
Patriots
pattern,
because they've been to 7 straight AFC titles. They've got here. They can have a possibility of going to 8 Super Bowls in 17 years, and so everybody thinks that's easy. That's an anomaly. Skip, you covered this game. You've never ever, even the 49ers of the 80s weren't this consistent. The Steelers of the 70s weren't this consistent. They go almost 7 straight years to the AFC finals.
but also there's a feeling of urgency because they have Le'Veon and Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger, and Ben Roethlisberger is seeing the end of his career.
Well, you should have went and gave Le'Veon that money earlier and not let him get to the end of the contract. So now you're giving a running back $12, $13 million in cap space. You need another defensive end, and you need another corner or a safety that can make plays. That's what you need. I'm
what
sorry,
happens.
Joy.
What?
You might go another 20 years. You'll be all right.
Rob, thanks for joining us.
No mercy.
The Patriots are 9-point favorites in Sunday's AFC Championship game against the Jaguars, but that did not stop Jalen Ramsey from predicting earlier that the Jags would not only beat the Patriots, but they would win the Super Bowl. Tom Brady responded to that yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I think what I've learned over a long time is it's how you play and it's not what you say. And I think, everyone has different ways of handling things. Coaches do, players do. We do what works for us. Those are other players that work for them. The game's going to be decided by who plays the best, not who hypes the best or speaks the best. He's a really good player. I've watched a ton of film on him. He's got a lot of strengths. He's obviously very confident. That's reflected in how he plays. So, I'm more concerned about how he plays as opposed to what he says. This is the biggest challenge we've faced all year. We've had a good offense. They've had the best defense. And, that's always a challenge when you go up against those guys. And when you watch them play over the course of the whole season, you could see why. I mean, there's not a lot of time for the quarterback to throw, and I think the whole secondary knows it. Linebackers know it, and, they're aggressive. They take chances. There's a reason why they're in this game. I'd say it's certainly the best team we've faced all season, and if we don't play our best, then we're not going to advance.
Shannon, are you buying Brady's praise for the Jags?
I'm buying it, Joy, just not at Tom's price. We know, golly shucks, gee whiz, Tom, this is what he does. He could play the Cleveland Browns, and he would say that's the best defense we'd played all year. And they say, well, Tom, they're like 1-31 over the last 2 years, but they're better than their record would indicate. That's what he does. That's how quarterbacks normally do it. That's how that's coach talk. But skilled players, we don't look at it like that. We're going to say what our true feelings are. They can be had. Now, I watched San Francisco hang 44 on them. So if Jimmy G, my backup, can get him, I already know I'm licking my chops. Jacksonville know what Tom Brady's doing. Oh, that's the best team. They're loaded from front to back. They got 2 really good corners. They can rush the quarterback. Their linebackers are really fast. He's selling them good. They ain't buying Tom. They already know Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless be hyping stuff up. Yeah, get off of them old good old cold takes. They ain't no hot takes. Just them old good old cold takes. Tom Brady is the ultimate. Politically, he'd be the perfect CEO of any corporation. He's going to be Pollyanna. He ain't going to give you lily wide. It'll be right down the... Right here, Joey. Speed limit says 55. He's doing 54. You know what I'm saying? He's going to 10-2 steering. He's going to make sure he's going to look both ways before he enters the street. That's how Tom, Joey. He ain't going to say nothing, but I know what he's thinking. Because Skip Bayless going to talk about against the Legion of Boom in the 4th quarter, he played the best football. I already know you. I know you.
Can I write that
No,
down?
don't worry about it.
I didn't write that down.
You don't got to. So everything. So you only can speak about what you wrote down?
I have no plan to talk about the Legion of Boom, but since you brought that up, 13 of 15?
No.
Wow.
How you didn't write it down? How you know what he's doing?
And guess what? When the 4th quarter comes in games of this magnitude, he's driving 105 miles an hour. You know it, and I know it.
Yeah, he was on the Autobahn then.
Yeah, right.
But look, we know what Tom's doing. He's going to give them their credit. He doesn't want them to have any extra motivation. And my thing is, at this point in juncture, you're so close. You're going to be very motivated because you're one step away from reaching your ultimate goal, which is getting to the Super Bowl. This game is also the toughest because when you lose it, you realize just how close you were. to reaching your ultimate destination. And then you have to start all the way back over again next year, and you start the arduous climb again. So I'm buying Tom Brady. I'm just not buying him at this price, Joey. If we can get a negotiated price, maybe I'll be in. But right now, I'm buying it, but we need to talk about the price that he's trying to set.
So I'm buying this at whatever price he sets on the internet. I'll buy it.
See,
I'll order it.
yeah,
Yep.
because you got all the books and the pajamas and everything.
I don't have any.
Yeah, you do.
I just got one pair.
Yeah, whoa.
Recovery. There's a recovery top.
What you recovering from? After I beat you down like this every day?
Under Armour.
You probably got them on right now.
You don't train the way I train, so I got to recover at night, see. So I need some help. And I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying it works.
Excuse me, Joey. I'm sorry.
Back to what Tom Brady we heard him say on his radio gig yesterday in Boston, WEEI. This was not to me, usually I'd agree with every word you just said, but this didn't come across to me as the usual, typical, predictable, aw shucks, gee whiz platitudes from what you know to be an assassin in sheep's clothing, because that's what he is, in sheep's clothing. This came across like he was in one of those honest, I'm just going to lay it on the table moods for Jalen Ramsey. And he's right out of the box, he said, I think what I have learned, and he's 40 years of age and he has 5 Super Bowl rings. He said, what I have learned for a long time, it's how you play, not what you say. So in the end, no matter what we talk about, all the trash we talk and predict, was that too much? Is Jalen Ramsey over the top with his virtual guarantee to his fans back in Jacksonville Stadium? Brady is saying, baloney. Let's look at how we play this game. And the 2 key lines that I picked up on were, number one, Ray Lewis would love this if he were sitting here right now. Tom said publicly, I have watched a ton of film on him, on Jalen Ramsey. He has a lot of strengths, which it's obvious. He's becoming the best corner in football.
He's an all-pro.
He's obviously very confident. That is reflected in how he plays. Is it ever?
Yeah.
But I am more concerned about how he plays opposed to what he says. Okay? Bingo. That pretty much sums it up. So now we're back to a little detail we haven't discussed. Guess what happened back in training camp? You could call it another Jedi mind trick on the part of Bill Belichick. Against whom did these Patriots practice 3 times in Foxborough?
Jags.
The Jacksonville Jags. Did Belichick see this coming? You don't think that helped Tom Brady, along with watching a ton of film? He got to experience up close and personal the force of that front 7. They're probably just playing 7-on-7. I don't know if they rushed the passer or not, if he wore a red jersey. I don't know. Maybe they did a little bit, maybe just a little bit.
Normally what you do when you have a joint camp session, Skip, you do one-on-one pass rush drill, so you get the guards going against the D tackles, you got the tackles going against the edge rushers and things like that, 9-on-7, but you don't, I mean, you do team stuff, but guys that like still after quarterback, you don't want to be the guy that gets too close and Tom Brady's throwing a pass and you break his finger. Or you hit his elbow and he tears a ligament.
But in the let's do the back 7 versus your
you definitely do 7-on-7.
You're going to go hard.
You're doing 7-on-7. So you get a chance to see,
And so you get a chance to feel of his quickness and his break on the ball and his attitude and how he carries himself. He's picking up. He's watching. He's putting in the mental bank, right? And this was very honest, I thought. He did call it the biggest challenge they've faced all year. Well, I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's any breaking news.
No.
I don't think he's overly complimenting them because they're really good on defense. But he did say that there's not a lot of time for the quarterback to throw. Well, they are Saxonville. They were second in sacks to the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, just one off the Steelers. It's 56-55. So they had 55 sacks in the regular season. And he said that he thinks that the whole secondary knows that the quarterback's not going to have a lot of time, and the linebackers know it. And so here's the key line. They take chances.
Double moves. He's trying to tell y'all double moves coming.
Okay, all right. Well, if the 4 don't get home soon enough, if you give him an extra second or maybe even 2 seconds more, and they take chances, stuff can happen, right? I thought against Big Ben, a number of times they didn't get home. He had time to say, I think I'm going to try Antonio. I think I'm going to throw it to the back of the end zone and see if he can make a play. And a couple times he made a play. I think Martavis, I'm just going to throw it as far as I can, hope Martavis snags it in the back of the end zone because he had time to make those deep throws.
Right.
more time than I thought he was going to have. So to Brady's point, in takeaways, Jacksonville was second to the Baltimore Ravens. So it was 34 for Baltimore and 33 for Jacksonville. So they will take it away.
Yes.
But they are taking chances.
Oh, yeah, you got to.
Right?
If you take the ball away, you do take risk. And in a situation, we know the Patriots, they're very capable of running double moves, Skip.
Yep.
And the thing with Tom Brady is that when he struggles against number one defenses, it's normally on the road.
Yep.
Having to go to Denver for 2 of those 3 last AFC Championship games, that posed a problem for him. Going against the Giants, he did get the Legion of Boom, but that was a neutral site setting. And so this is why they fight so hard to get home field, because if you're a good defense, they want to be able to hear all their calls. They want to hear the checks. They want the crowd in their favor, and they want you to suffer from having to deal with crowd noise. So that plays into their hands. But I'll give Tom this. We scrimmaged against the Carolina Panthers. In 1996, we played them in the preseason also. But the following year, we played them in the regular season, Skip. So I knew what they were capable of, and I saw, I'm like, okay, it's on the intricacy. Don't say nothing, Joe, about hit them up for sale for 174. That's all I did to him.
How do you remember the exact number?
Because I knew it. I said, man, if I can get my hands on this team in a real game, it's going to be trouble. It's going to be smoke up in the city, Skip. And lo and behold, I saw him on the I said, oh, my goodness. I had to do him dirty. I felt bad, Skip. No, I didn't.
Man. Nobody can live in the past like Shannon Sharpe, right?
No, I was just saying.
Okay.
Scrimmaging against someone, it does help you because
it does.
Because Skip, the thing is, for me, practice in training camp was always the hardest because I get an opportunity. The guy saw me every single day, so he knew all the little subtleties, some things that you can't pick up on tape. But when you're there and you see him and you're watching him at practice in and practice out, you pick up subtleties. And I'm sure Tom Brady, as being a student of the game as he is, he's picked up subtleties.
You got it.
And it's just a small, maybe a small snip here or there that, okay, the way this guy's positioned, the way Ramsey's playing, somebody's coming. Now, they're not a heavy blitz team because their front four is so good they can get home without sacrificing the back end. But when they do come, they seemingly always get home.
I would agree. And by the way, the Jacksonville, New England, they went ahead and played a preseason game, but it was the first one, so Tom didn't play in the game. So it was only in those 3 practices. But I'm sure there were lengthy sessions where you got a pretty good eyeful of what he can do over in the corner and what he can do on that.
You get team drills. You get 7-on-7 also. And the linemen get an opportunity to see what they like to do in one-on-one pass rushing situations. Is it an up and under move? Is it a bull rush? Is it a speed rush? Is it Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off? So you get an opportunity to see all the little subtleties, Skip, because guys are working on things then that they think will help them come game time. So you'll get an opportunity. You go back and look at, okay, this is what they did in one-on-one situation. Now you go to a game situation. Okay, he really likes that move. That's what he likes to go to in that D&D.
So in the end of this interview, I thought Tom Brady was as open and forthright and revealing as I've heard him publicly.
I want Tom to say, I'm going to gut him. No. I'm going to do what I always do. Did you see me in my last game?
Jalen Ramsey, he can do that. Tom will leave that to Jalen Ramsey.
You see what I did to the Falcons when I was behind?
You did that. Tom Brady does not do that.
Do it,
but
Tom.
He did impart some wisdom that I think even you could appreciate.
What'd he say?
And if Jalen Ramsey would listen closely to this, or Miles Jack, or Leonard Fournette, any of the young players, I think they could learn a lot from what Tom Brady has learned the hard way, the painful way, in some of his playoff losses. And this was the last clip in this show. He said, you think about some of these real close games that we have been in, and they have been 1 or 2 play games. It's going to come down to 1 or 2.
Yes.
Like, when we come in on Monday morning, we're always talking about that play or maybe those couple of plays that turn the tide in the game. And he's saying, the reason you have to give maximum prep and then maximum focus and energy into every single play is because you don't want to walk away from an AFC Championship game and say, to quote him, damn, it was just that one play. Maybe your mind wandered. Maybe you weren't locked in. Maybe you were thinking about what you're going to do after the game. I don't know. You know how it happens.
Yes, it does.
There are a lot of plays in the game. You're on offense, you're going to run, 75 plays?
The average is about 65 plays a game.
All right. So, if you if you have one little glitch, if you let your mind wander for
Yes.
one split
Yes.
second, this is it, man.
Yeah.
You're going to have to live with it forever.
Absolutely.
And Tom has probably been there where he's walked away from maybe the first Super Bowl loss to Eli and thinks, I missed Randy on the one play. What was I thinking? I wasn't laser focused, to use his term.
And that's the thing, Skip, because when you get in playoff games, no play is unimportant because you never know if that play would have been the play that made the difference in the ball game. You look at right before the half, Neal in Atlanta and Philly. Neal's going to catch a ball that's going to hit him right in the chest. He jumps, the ball hits his knee, caroms, Torrey Smith catches it. They go kick a field goal. So now instead of Atlanta getting points.
It's big. Yep.
That could have possibly been a 7 or 10-point swing.
So what was he thinking? I don't know.
So you want to make sure you leave no stone unturned because Skip, you're right there. You know what's at the end of this game.
Yep. Well, to quote Ray Lewis, the great Ray Lewis from last week on Undisputed, somewhere right now, Tom Brady's sitting there going, click, 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 right?
And Jalen Ramsey better be doing the same.
And you know what I was doing? I was going, okay, let me see. When we win this is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's what you
Hey,
were
you
doing.
need who needs tickets? Don't.
Because you got this.
Y'all
You
better
got it.
freeze. Y'all better freeze.
I actually would be
Rivers.
more nervous if Brady came out and said that he was going to cook him.
Oh, no, I wouldn't cook him.
Then I would be worried.
No,
like,
but
Tom's
hold
falling
on.
apart.
Didn't he say he's doing this
Yeah, you'd be
docuseries?
nervous for Tom, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean? I
for
would too.
Tom.
Yes.
It's so unlike him.
Joy, but he said he's going to show us that he's going to open up. It's a docuseries. You know, with him in the pajamas, he throwing the leaves in the backyard, Joy. I mean, you know, he got a suit jacket on.
I
He
have some of those pajamas.
He dressed like me. Kids getting ready to go to bed. He dressed like me. Where you going at 10 o'clock at night?
Remember, a 40-year-old man is not going to engage in public trash talk with a 23-year-old
Why
quarterback.
not?
Well, he's just not.
I would've.
40 years old versus 23.
I'm about to be 50. And I'm mad, Skip. I've hired me a new doctor. I'm getting President Trump's doctor.
Are you really?
Yeah. Because
You turn back time?
I got lower blood pressure. My resting heart rate is 48 beats a minute.
I thought you were like an orange. What is it? You're like an
I'm
orange.
peeled.
Yeah.
Under 9% body fat, Skip. And Harry Yields, they talking about he in excellent health. Now, you just said he's 1 pound away from being obese, but he's in excellent health. I need to get me a new
I don't
doctor.
know.
Get my
I
pen,
don't
Skip,
know
baby.
what's happening. No mercy. Now let's talk about that NFC Championship game. The Vikings are a 3-point favorite in Philadelphia. It's the second straight game. The Eagles are a home underdog, and their fans are not appreciating that. Shannon, should Minnesota be favored?
No, I don't think so. Normally the home team. So basically, you're saying that Minnesota is 6 points favored
You were
better
saying that.
than Philly because the home team normally gets 3.5 points for being the home team. So for the Minnesota to be 3-point favorites, you're saying, and you're also saying, we have no confidence whatsoever in Nick Foles. We like Case Keenum better than we like Nick Foles. And if I'm the Eagles, and both teams had success doing this, what happened is that because Minnesota jumped out to the early lead, even though they did a fairly good job of the Saints of neutralizing their run games, they didn't really force Case Keenum to have to beat them. Atlanta, instead of jumping out to a 14-point lead, although the Eagles didn't run the ball super effectively, they didn't have to get away from it totally, Skip, because they were only 3 points, 1 point behind. So in order to impose your will to see who's the better of the backups, because that's what Nick Foles was a starter, but they've been backups. Funny, Skip, both of these guys were on the Rams last year, but that's not here nor there. But you have to take the run away and put these guys in situations where they're down, say, 7 to 10 points. Because if they're only down 3 points, they're only down a couple of points, Skip, they're going to stick with the runs. You need to force one of these guys to beat you. But I am shocked that the Minnesota Vikings, now the weather is going to be unseasonably warm, 50 as a high, so probably by kickoff it's going to be somewhere maybe mid-40s, low 40s, which is, considering what it's been in Northeast, that's pretty good. But I'm surprised, Skip. I mean, I know Minnesota's playing really well, but to be a 3-point favorite over a team that's been basically the number one team in the NFC, basically from start to finish, I'm really surprised that Minnesota's favored by 3. Considering it's not like Case Keenum is like a five-year starter, a proven veteran quarterback. He's been a backup the majority of his career, and they're saying we believe this backup case. That's what Vegas is saying. We believe this backup is better than that backup. They have no confidence in Nick Foles.
I am so with you on this. I think Vegas has this upside down. I think the Eagles should be at least a 3-point favorite at home. And to your point about Nick Foles, seriously, he's getting less respect than Blake Bortles.
Yes.
That's how they're treating him.
Yes.
He's not a punchline. He's not being referred to as trash. He's just viewed as an irrelevant liability in Philadelphia, right? Like he doesn't even count. He doesn't even exist. And because he doesn't exist, they're a 3.5-point underdog at home when they had the 4th best defense in points allowed. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
They were first in the National Football League against the run.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say good luck, Minnesota, with Latavius and maybe a little Jerick McKinnon.
Correct.
Again, they averaged 3.9 a rush, did Minnesota during the year, which ranked 23rd. So they don't run it great. I think they're going to run it none against these guys in this stadium. This is a hard place to win a game in.
And they're going to be fired.
And this team, Philadelphia, had the 3rd best rushing offense. So they can run the heck out of it with your ex-Dolphin and that ex-Patriot, right?
Yep.
It's a pretty lethal
and
one,
throw Clement in there.
Yeah, and you know what? As a 3rd down back, he's pretty good.
Very.
So real quick, let's look at Nick Foles' career so far. He has started 41 National Football League games. That's quite a bit, right? And in those games, he's thrown 61 touchdowns to only 29 interceptions. Well, if I told you that about anybody else, you'd be saying, hey, who doesn't want this guy, right? And he's played now in 2 playoff games, and in those 2 games, he's thrown 2 touchdown passes, but 0 interceptions in either of the 2 games. Maybe the one against Atlanta should have been picked, but it wasn't. So in the 2 playoff games, Nick Foles has gone 46 out of 63. That's a high percentage for 441 yards. So he's shown you under pressure. He got off to a little shaky start against the Falcons, but then once he locked in, he was pretty smooth, man. So look at his pedigree. Look at where he came from. He went to Drew Brees High School in Austin, Texas, Austin Westlake, which is known as a passing high school. So he followed Drew Brees there, and he was a hot national recruit. And he was going back and forth between Arizona and Arizona State. Then he went to Michigan State. Then he transferred back to Arizona and finished there. In his last year, he threw for 4,000-plus yards. So he was a big-time thrower in a draft that featured Luck and RG3 and your guy down in Miami, Tannehill, and Kirk Cousins was in there. Osweiler was in there. Who are we forgetting? Brandon Weeden was in there. The point is, it was a quarterback-laden draft. He could have gone higher without all that star power in there, but he went in the 3rd round. So he wasn't like undrafted, right?
Correct.
So, and remember, he was such a good basketball player that Texas and Baylor recruited him to play basketball. So he's got some ability. He's not fast, but he can move around a little bit, and they run a pure West Coast offense.
Shows he's athletic.
Okay? I'm just saying, he doesn't have the biggest arm, but he's a pretty accurate thrower, and he's shown you regularly over time he doesn't choke.
No.
He doesn't collapse. He doesn't come apart. And yet his team is a 3.5-point underdog at home just because of him?
And
that's just craziness.
And you mentioned it, Skip. He got off to the shaky start. But last week against Atlanta, he was 23 of 30 for 246.
Okay.
7 incompletions after the start that he got off. But what they were able to do, because Atlanta didn't run ahead, Skip, 50% of his completions were to the backs and tight ends.
Okay.
I can assure you that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to minimize. Both teams will try and minimize. But here's the thing that Philly, when you stop the run, you dictate what the team does. They're also number 1 in quarterback hits. So when they stop your run and they get you in known passing situations, they go get your quarterback. Now, Fletcher Cox and Jernigan and Graham and Chris Long, Jim Schwartz, they put them in that cowboy front, that wide 9. They don't even, they like, hey, don't worry about the run. Go get the quarterback, because they can't beat us running the football. They beat you. I mean, running game, you control the clock. You keep the other team's offense off the field, whoop-de-whoop. Points come out the passing game. Go knock the heck out of their quarterback. Let's see if they got it. Okay, Vegas, you like Case Keenum? Well, what we're going to try to do, we're going to try to knock him out of the game and see if you still like the backup.
Yeah.
Because that's what I know Sam Bradford. Now, we know what Sam Bradford will do. He going to fold like a banquet chair at the end of the night when pressure comes.
Always
they know firsthand in Philadelphia what Sam Bradford's going to do. So if I'm Philadelphia Eagle, if I'm Jim Schwartz, I'm dialing it up. I'm coming to get him.
Yeah. So you've talked regularly about Case Keenum. He's just a backup quarterback. So he started 38 games, which is a lot in the
Yes.
NFL. But just remember, just on pedigrees, he's a Texas kid too from Abilene.
Yeah.
But he went undrafted out of University of Houston.
Yeah.
So everybody thought he was too little,
Right.
and he was a product of a run and gun
Right.
spread offense, right?
Yep.
So you would think that if you step away from this and look at the perspective of it, you would think Nick Foles has a better pedigree. He's actually been a little better under playoff pressure, although that was Keenum's first game. But
And Nick Foles did once in a season have 27 touchdowns with 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
He did take a team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they make, and like you said, Skip, they make it seem like the dude Blake Bortles, like we talk about Blake. Now Blake does have a team in the playoffs, but you look at Nick Foles' body of work, he's had some nice notches on his belt. 27 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. That's something to be commended. Taking a team to the playoffs is something to be commended. Vegas is making it seem like he's accomplished nothing.
nothing. So, just to declare myself, I'm going to root for Minnesota to win this game behind Magic Man Case Keenum because, again,
You Cowboys.
I hope, it's not an Eagles thing, I hope that Tom Brady can get by the Jacksonville Jaguars that you're leaning toward picking, obviously. So if he gets by the Jaguars, I want Brady to have the degree of difficulty of having to go against statistically the number 1 defense in their Thunderdome in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Which has never happened, obviously, to have a home Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
So that would look better on Brady's legacy because if Nick Foles gets there, then everybody's going to say, Brady's against Nick Foles?
But
That's all?
he's against Case Keenum.
Huh? I know, but against the number 1 defense up in that crazy place.
I mean, because here's the thing, though, Skip. Why Eli gets so much credit, they don't look at the defense that Coach Belichick brought in that game. They look at who he beat on the opposing side. So that's the thing they're looking at. Hold on. In his first Super Bowl, he beat Kurt Warner, who was a 2-time Super Bowl. He was a league MVP, who was a Super Bowl MVP, who's the first quarterback to throw for over 400 yards in a Super Bowl game. So that's what you look at. You look at, well, who did he beat in that game? Drew Brees. Who did he beat in his Super Bowl win? He beat Peyton Manning.
I know, but in that case, then Brady can't win. It's like 6 to 1, half dozen the other.
There's nothing
Nick Foles' case,
Brady,
but
because
you can make the case he beat the number 1 defense in its house,
Brady,
right?
Skip, he can't win in this situation because either the quarterback, he was going to be favored. They're a touchdown favorite regardless of who they
Right, because they're both technically backups.
play. Exactly.
How quickly things changed for the Eagles, huh? Number 1 team in the NFC to now being the lovable underdog.
But Skip, if they go to and win the Super Bowl, that team is in your conference, in your division.
There you go.
And they did it without a walking tour.
And wait a
Bringing up
second.
the Cowboys.
Wait a second. You just said the magic line.
walking tour.
They did it without Carson
No,
Wentz,
no.
which would completely undercut his value
Skip,
to the team.
Skip.
It already has.
Skip, the man
Nick
went.
Foles,
Skip,
Carson
Skip.
Wentz. It looks the same to me.
The man was 11-2.
Huh?
The man was 11-2.
Well, this man keeps winning game.
Well,
after
it'll be
game.
an interesting sight either way because Eagles fans have completely embraced it. They actually sold out an Amazon shop of the dog
Budget
masks, and they're letting them go into Lincoln Financial with them on as long as they take them off during security. So
Walk it to him as watch it to him right now.
Don't
He
do
is
that,
Watch
Skip.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Old Dak, all he doing is spinning commercials.
our next guest was a 4-time Pro Bowler with the Cowboys in the 80s. He then won a Super Bowl on the Giants with Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells, and he's a finalist this year for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Everson Walls, welcome to
Welcome.
Undisputed.
Thank you.
It's good
Pleasure
to have
to have
you.
you.
So much, man.
Shannon Sharpe.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of getting to know this gentleman when he was an undrafted rookie for the Dallas Cowboys out of Grambling State University. And he proceeded that year to lead the National Football League in interceptions with 11. And in all my years of covering this game, I have never observed anyone in a defensive backfield who could play the football in the air better than this man could. Not the biggest fast, although he's pretty big. You're pretty long, actually. Not the fastest guy, but on mental quickness, beating ball to receiver, right? This guy could do it with the best of them.
Hey, I had to just survive out there.
Right.
I don't know if you recall, rookie out of Grambling, you see Jim Hart or Joe Theismann, and they look at me out there on the corner.
They were saying, we got
This little old
this.
brother from
Yeah.
Grambling,
Right.
college.
Undrafted out of
so
Grambling.
they start audibling right there. We're going this way. I don't know what the call was, Coach, but we're going this way.
Well,
So-
it's good to have you.
Yes,
but
it
you're
is.
going to
Go
be
ahead.
coaching in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, which is Saturday here on FS1. So what are you most looking forward to?
I'm just loving dealing with the kids. I have a mentoring program, like most guys do, called Ethos Education. And what we try and do is talk to kids about changing their mindset about, what you're going to be in life and what you think of yourself, not letting anybody else determine your success. And this is the way these kids are. We got 100 plus kids out there, and all of them think they're going to the pros. So that's not going to happen. We both know that. But it's one of the more successful bowl games because they have invited a lot of those kids. A majority of them have made some camps, and they've also made some teams. So my thing is, for those that don't make it, we want to make sure that whatever you do, no matter how good you think you are in football, you can be just like that in anything else that you do. Just you have to dedicate yourself towards it. And that's to me, I'm using that aspect. I know some of those kids are great kids. I know some of them are great athletes. But I want them to just be great people. And when they leave that camp, I want them to be better than when they got there. That's the goal.
So, speaking of a rookie defensive back, there was one on Sunday up in Minneapolis who played for the New Orleans Saints named Marcus Williams, who had a terrific rookie year. But on what became the final play of the game, he made, for what most people believe to be a mind-boggling decision. Can you put it in perspective from what you saw on that play?
Yeah, I definitely can. As a defensive back in that situation, first of all, you can say what you want. Everybody's talking about being this particular person this time of the game. I'm that guy. I can depend on myself. Come at me, all of that. Well, when it's all said and done, you're a little nervous.
Yeah.
You're just a little nervous. And that's good to be nervous because that heightens, your senses.
Awareness,
That's
yes.
exactly right. So he was probably there. And when that ball went up in the air, that was his moment of truth. And he saw that. And sometimes just that little bit of doubt, it just takes that moment to really go from being a hero to being a guy that's blamed by every Saints fan for the downfall of Earth and society. Basically, that's the way they look at it.
That's true.
And he ended up, at that moment, instead of making the play or not making the play, he ended up doing the latter. And it doesn't matter how it looks, to him. All he knows is he didn't make the play. But when you have that type of indecision, you become posterized. And hey, I've been there. Trust me, I've been there.
Well, you were there when Dwight Clark went up in the fog at Candlestick your rookie year and made
It
the
wasn't
catch.
fog. It wasn't fog, Skip. There was no fog.
No fog. It just seems like in my head.
No fog.
Maybe there's fog in my head.
Everybody wants to, glorify it. I've talked to 10,000 people that say, hey, man, I was right there in the corner of that end zone. I'm like, man, Candlestick was not that big. It couldn't have been, all y'all couldn't have been in the end zone.
You told everybody that was there.
Everybody was in the end zone. Right.
Not that you had a chance to break that play up, but you got posterized because I think it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and you can see.
Oh, I definitely had a chance. And there's no doubt about it. I put it on myself. Matter of fact, I called Marcus the other day, and I told
Marcus Williams,
I
yeah.
called Marcus Williams. I was given his number. I was surprised he answered the phone because
Really?
there's no way I'd answer a freaking phone if I'm not after all this crap.
No.
And he ended up answering the phone. We talked for a while, and you just got to share with the brother, man. I've been there. He had a great game. He had one interception.
He played great. He played great this season.
He had a great season. And as a matter of fact, they were talking about how great that entire secondary was because they had a great
Marshawn
draft,
Lattimore,
and
yep.
They've got a great young secondary. And does that sound familiar? We weren't Thurman Steves at the time, but we had Mike Downs, Ron Fellows, and myself had just come to the Cowboys in
And Dennis
1981.
Thurman was there.
And here we are, man. We are in that. Now, it wasn't fog, but the field was soggy as hell, as it always was.
Yeah.
So that all added to the drama. When you talk about that last drive in Candlestick, man, we were just bone dog tired. Even Dwight, I talked to him several times
Dwight
about
Clark, yeah.
Just so tired doing that entire drive. And it was my man. Matter of fact, we had Dwight doubled on that play. But, as the play went and Joe's back there pumping and pumping, I'm like, what the hell's going on back there? I'm trying to, man to man.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's going on back there. I look back, there's the ball, and I'm thinking, that sucker's gone,
Well, Joe said he tried to throw it away.
He did.
Yeah.
Well, he changed it later, too, we practiced that, yeah. So, you know how that goes, man.
Yeah, you gotta go.
Legends grow legs, you know how that goes. And so, with the flight of the ball, I didn't see it. I'm going towards the back. He's going towards the front. But make no mistake now, if I would have seen that ball, me and Dwight would have been going at it. Okay, I would have jumped. I would actually jump for the ball if I would have actually seen that. So those moments of indecision, I should have been doing what I always did. And I told Marcus this. I should have played the way I always play. Look at the quarterback, turn around and play. We called it cluing.
Cluing.
Tom Landry hated cluing. And he warned me against it. I led the league. He warned me every time I got an interception. Watch your cluing. So I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to do it this way.
You play it straight up.
I should have just done me. That's what I told Marcus. From now on, do you. And he can offset this crap.
And he
that's happened to him.
reacted how to you on the phone?
Oh, he was just very articulate. He was just, very
so
sorry
what
about
was
it.
his
Just-
view of the play? What was he thinking?
Well, it was exactly the same thing. He had that moment of indecision. He didn't want to get the PI. And sometimes you have to just take the lesser of the evils. You take that PI. Don't. He was aggressive the entire game. Don't back off from being aggressive now. You still want to be smart, but you don't want to be too aggressive. I think that's kind of where he was caught in between.
My coach used to tell us, son, he who hesitates is beat. That moment of hesitation. Skip, when Everson walked out here, it's what we do, black college athletes do. We always greet each other. What's up, HBCU? Everson is one, and I don't know how many people know this, he's one of 2 men in the NFL history to lead the NFL in interceptions on 3 different occasions.
times.
He and Ed Reed.
Yep.
Coming from Grambling, and I know a lot of historically black college players, especially the cornerback position, all you play is man.
Yes.
There is no zone coverage. There's no
That's
cover
right.
2.
Nope.
There's no this
No
cover
nickel
4.
defenses.
No, none of that.
Nope.
You play straight man.
That's it.
Do you think that helped you? Because when you came in, that's all you had ever played. So you knew how to play man coverage.
As far as I was concerned, yes, I thought it did. I couldn't wait to lock down. There were times, I remember the first practice we had, we hadn't even made it to training camp. And Tony Hill comes up there, he's a veteran at the time, I'm thinking 3-year veteran. And he's like, hey guys, I just want to come here and get a good look. I want one of you rookie DBs come give me a good look. So one guy jumped up there. I ran up there, I knocked this guy out the way. I'm like, it's Tony Hill. I want to show what's happening. I'm going to let you know I'm the guy. You're going to be dealing with me from training camp from now on. And he was like, hey, rookie, I'm just chilling, man. I'm going to just come out here and run a route. He ran some route. I was all on it. Just ran a curl. Yeah. I'm all in his way. I'm bumping him. He's like, okay, rookie. So he comes out the next time, and he shook me down, man. He almost broke my ankle. He said, you look forward to that. Okay? So that's the kind of stuff you had to deal with. So one-on-one was my thing. That's how you get your identity. One-on-one is like extremely intense in every practice.
It is. So
And I
give
look
us
forward to it.
insight into another coach you played for who was the coordinator in New York when you went to the Giants, Coach Belichick.
Yes, sir.
And you played some corner and some safety for him. How is he getting so much out of a defense that most fans can't name one player on this year?
Well, Belichick does what every coach, I think, should do. Your system is your system. But every player is not the same. We are not drones. We are not robots. Everyone is good at what they do. I'm doing the camp with Darryl Green. I'm not Darryl Green. Darryl Green is amazingly fast, played 20 years. Yeah. I'm Everson Walls. He's short, I'm tall, he's fast, I'm slow. We're both survivors. We're both good cornerbacks. Hopefully, we'll both be Hall of Fame cornerbacks when it's all said and done. You have to design your defense or adapt it to the strength and weaknesses of the players that you have. And Belichick was always able to do that. When I first met Bill, I was talking with Parcells. And when Bill saw me, he started smiling. When Belichick saw me, he started smiling because what he saw was, okay, I've got this lanky cornerback who's got this experience. Maybe I can put him at safety.
Right.
He doesn't just have to be at corner.
Right.
I can play with this guy, tinker with it a little bit. Next thing you know, I'm playing safety on third downs. I'm calling plays with Jim Kelly in the Super Bowl. And, wide right, there you go. I led that team in interceptions because Belichick put me in position to do that. And all coaches, I think, should understand what that player's weakness and strength is before you just go plug him into a situation and say, play the system.
Got it. Back to the current Dallas Cowboys. My partner across the table gave Dak Prescott for this season an F grade. That's how much he declined in his view. So how much would you blame Dak for the demise of this year's Dallas Cowboys?
Dak could have done better. There's no doubt about it. But when you're talking about a second-year player who was really surprised, I think, at how well things went his rookie year. It's like they could do no wrong.
Correct.
Every hole was open. Zeke got 100 yards almost every game.
Yep.
He's getting 200, almost 300 every game as a passer. Now, all of a sudden, here comes a problem. You know, we have to adapt to not having really our number one guy in our offense.
Number one guy. Again, someone says number one guy, which is Zeke Elliott, not Dak Prescott. But carry on,
But
Everson.
that's okay. That's okay for a quarterback. All quarterbacks really do, a lot of quarterbacks really do it. They feed off of their running game. That's the way it is. The offensive line itself, I think, might deserve a little decrease in their grade.
Yep.
What did you give them?
He didn't like the way his offensive line
I'll
played.
give him a C minus, maybe.
And you know, when you raise the bar so high,
Correct.
Yep.
you know, then there's a long fall. And that's what they experience.
So-
Not just Dak, not just Zeke, but that offensive line.
So can you
itself had
explain to
problems.
me why Dak Prescott had no receiver who could get open and separate, starting with that number 88 over there? What happened to him this year?
Okay, here's what I always think about the Cowboys offense, as you know, intricate as it is. I think if you're not going to stretch the defense as a defensive back, I'm not playing deep. I'm sitting down on every route. You keep running all this crap, crossing routes, this, that, and the other. I'm sitting down on every route, and I will not have any fear of getting beat deep. The Cowboys just don't have that in their game plan. I don't know why, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to open up your game plan, then you have to give me the fear that I'm going to be beat deep. And I never saw that in the game plan.
Except for Bryce Butler occasionally.
Man, and they rarely played him. I don't know if he was hurt the whole year. I don't know what the deal was with that. But when you look at the Arizona game,
Yep.
where it was basically the last time I saw him before the end of the season,
That's correct.
when he set up his own touchdown again on that other game he played in.
Everson, Bryce, I think, would very much agree with you.
Michael Irvin gonna be calling somebody.
Be sure to check out the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl Saturday on FS1. Everson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
No mercy.
Thanks for listening to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. We're back at the same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see you then.
Fox Sports. One of one.